Greetings. My name is Anujna. I'm an architect and a natural builder, and I'm here to share the light from our corner of the world with you all today. Because light is not just a convenience, it symbolizes hope, it is energy, it symbolizes health, wealth, prosperity, it symbolizes burning away the negativity from our minds. This picture is of Ganga Ghat in Rishikesh, where the river Ganga is being worshipped every evening by offering light to her. This is how light is perceived culturally in India. With 300 plus sunny days in a year, people in rural India mostly rely on daylight, on natural daylight, to get to their livelihood. These are some images of daylight. Uh, the top two images are of a twilight from the Himalayas, and the bottom left picture is of a street in a tribal hamlet where shady, dense, canopied tamarind trees are planted along the street to give shade because even if we have 300 plus sunny days, during the daytime, bigger challenge is to cut out the heat and create shade through the dazzling bright daylight. So using various shading devices is how we will manage the daylight in rural India. The bottom middle picture, center picture, is of a tribal homestead where it's surrounded by thick, dense, shady trees all around, but it allows the daylight into the house where it's most needed. You can see in the left top corner a living area of a tribal house, which is just a raised plinth with a roof, allowing the ambient light into the space where people spend their afternoons cutting out the heat, hot, humid environment outside. The top center picture is of a small window carved into a mud wall to let the light in. It also has a small oil lamp buried inside for nighttime lighting. The rightmost picture is of a tribal kitchen where there is a gap between the wall and a roof on one side. That gap allows the smoke from the chula to escape, and it allows plenty of top light, which doesn't blind the person cooking. The bottom center picture is of a Himachali house where beautifully carved wooden windows are used to draw in the light in mornings and evenings, and it also cuts out the glare during the afternoon. That brings us to nighttime, where people mostly relied on oil lamps of various designs to provide light during the nighttime. But slowly and steadily, even the remote villages are getting connected to the energy grid. Solar panels are becoming more and more popular in the villages because that allows people to have at least a few hours of electrical lighting in the evening. And it has been observed time and again that access to electrical lighting is directly equivalent to academic opportunities for rural children. I mean, most of us can't imagine not being able to study because there is no light at night, but that's been the reality for most rural children for a very long time in India. But at the same time, the electrification and the electrical fittings available and accessible for the villagers are quite rudimentary, and it doesn't take into the account the aesthetics and the aesthetic needs of natural buildings, mud houses that people have lived in. For more than this one reason, people from rural India are moving away from natural buildings. And in this flux of development as the urban policymakers see it versus how people have lived for centuries in India, stands the work of a few visionary designers like Didi Contractor, who mentored me. And that is something that I would like to share with you all. Uh, this is the work of a Didi Contractor who was trained as a sculptor and was a self-taught architect. And she brought light to the beauty of Kangra architecture in Himachal. And she used those methods of building to create some really beautiful and modern spaces at the same time. The rightmost picture is of her living room, where she's used a wooden shelf with a textured handmade paper to cover a light fitting. And it throws a beautiful warm light on that textured mud wall, which also has a niche for books. The picture right in the middle is of a meditation hall with a skylight, which lets in a diffused daylight into the building. And it has picture windows all around that frame the whole other range of mountains beautifully. The leftmost picture is of a private residence that she designed, which has multiple levels inside the house as well as in the roof. And the gap levels in the roof become skylights, and that lets in plenty of daylight through the house in different spots at different time of the day. And the house doesn't need any electrical lighting during the day. These two pictures are also of another house she designed. And what I love the most about these pictures is how the skylights and the windows and the light drawn into the house changes the quality of the space. And it makes these mud walls into a living sculpture that we can live inside. People who are more familiar with urban style of building and a diversity of shades and colors that are available in chemical paints have a lot of concern about mud walls being too boring and drab. These are the pictures that I like to show them to see that with simple materials and simple technologies, it's possible for a good designer to create something beautiful and warm and airy and so light. And that is where Didi's work stands apart, in my opinion. These are pictures of an off-grid home we designed a couple of years ago, and this is in the middle of wilderness where there is no electrical grid access possible. So during the daytime, the house heavily relies on the skylights and the light drawn in from outside. And at night time, it has two solar panels to provide light, warm white light for the house. These are some images of the uh, uh, mud houses that we have built so far. You can see that the warm white light goes beautifully with mud houses and the textures of mud houses. The bottom center picture is of a radio station in Garhwal, Uttarakhand, where we have tried to use local technologies, not just for the building, but the radio station itself functions only in local language. It's a community radio station. The light fitting we have used for that radio station is in the leftmost corner, and that is a basket weaved with technique called ringal, which is also a diminishing craft in that area. And we feel that lampshade symbolizes all the beauty and the craft that rural India already has. And it doesn't take a lot to reverse the depression that rural India has lived for a long time, when the villages in India don't need to look up to cities for development and aspiration of better life. Everything that is required to create good life, to create beauty, to create modern life in villages is available in villages itself. And work of a few handful visionary designers like Laurie Baker and Didi Contractor, I feel that their work stands as an example of how easily it can be done. And Didi used to say that she sees light as the divine, and her buildings and the way she has spread her message really spreads that light out to all of us. And on the occasion of Women's Day, I would like to share the same light with you all. Thank you so much.